Hello there, good people. My name is Marco. Welcome to my channel. In this video, we're gonna go on with the Python's project for beginners, and today we are number 3, which is, wait for it, adventure game. Let's take a look. So as you can see here, just let's go over a bit of the bulk of it, the gist. And it's a version of adventure game, but it's completely text-based, whatever that means. So we need to provide description for each room. And then I think the crucial thing here is that, well, of course we must create walls, set direction, but most importantly, we need to track the movement of the player. And I gotta be honest with you, the first time I read this, I didn't think of it as a beginner's project, because every time I have to deal with trackers or tracking objects, etc., I always think about classes in this case, and I'm not really sure that classes actually classifies as beginners friendly material. But I guess it depends on the definition of beginners, because if you've been coding for a few months in Python, for example, which is an object-oriented programming language, you've probably been exposed to classes before. So when you think of it in terms of classes, this project becomes very easy and actually very, very fun. Before starting the project, I need to give a bit of an introduction, a brief introduction. And for this one, I'm gonna call, I think, a professor, so that will be more professional. So let's hear what he has to say. Hello there. My name is Professor Mario from Mario, and today I wanted to talk about something that should be familiar to many people, namely the Cartesian plane. The Cartesian plane is a two-dimensional plane, and the two axes represent the x-coordinate, or the abscissa, while the vertical axis is the y-coordinate. Every object on this plane can be identified by its x and y coordinate, objects like point A, for instance, but also lines, where A and B represent where the line starts and where it ends. In addition, two-dimensional shapes, commonly called surfaces, can be easily described by the coordinates of their corners. In our example, a house is indeed a two-dimensional surface, as seen from above. As such, I can describe it geometrically as well as any room inside said house, just via the x and y coordinates of their corners. Thank you for listening. Thanks, Professor. Alright, so after this brief explanation, let's get back to the project. So what I want to do in this case is to create a player class, which is just gonna need the position of the player in xy coordinates, as well as a set of movements that can change said coordinates. Secondly, I will create a room class. This is going to have a name like kitchen, bathroom, etc., and the 4 coordinates of its corners. Why 4? Well, it's just to keep it simple. I'm sure that 6 wall rooms exist somewhere. I want to define these corners clockwise, starting from the bottom left, then top left, top right, and finally bottom right. In addition, I want an access point because I cannot enter the room through the walls. Therefore, I need a door, for example. Last, I want a house class, which will contain all the rooms or room objects that I have created, plus the main logic to move the player around, and of course, an access point, which would be the starting point of the player's journey. I'm not going to worry about the house walls because honestly, I don't care.
How can you not care?
Like this.
Now that I have a plan, I can start. Let's start by creating a Python file, and I'm going to call it adventure game.py. Okay, and we should find it here actually. That it is. I don't want to put it into Git. Okay, I'm gonna open it up, and as I said before, the first thing I want to create is the class player. So I'm gonna just create a class of player, and in the init method, I just need the x position and the y position, and this is going to be their attributes. That's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, A second thing that I need is a set of methods so that I can move the player around, or that I can enable the player to move around the house or the space. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually move up, let's say. Then I need a move down. Then I need a move left. And yeah, absolutely. And a move right. I think that's all. Okay, so let's think in terms of the Cartesian plane, so the XY coordinates. If I move up, it means that my Y coordinates increases of 1. So this is just as simple as putting like this. On the contrary, if I move down, my Y should decrease. So I can use this. In the same manner, we can think of it moving left to right on the X axis. So this should be self.x minus actually equal 1 because I'm moving to the left, and here is plus equal 1. Okay, so I'd say that the player class is done. The second thing that I need is actually a room class. Let's see how we can do that. So I need an init method, and in this case I think I'm gonna just init it with a few pieces of information. So the first thing is the name, so kitchen, bathroom, living room. The second thing that I want is actually the corners, and this is going to be a list of lists so that I can have the XY coordinates of every corner. And last but not least, I need a door. And in this case, I'm just gonna put one door because I'm not gonna bother with multiple doors. And so now that I know this, I can give it a name, and then I can go into the corners list and I can actually define the corner individually. So the bottom left corner is gonna be the first one. So corners, the first element. The top left will be the second element. The top right will be the third element, but that is not the symbol. And the bottom right will actually be, what have I done? The fourth element. So now I got 4 corners down, and now I want the door. All right. Now that I have this, I think the room class is pretty much done. I basically have a name, I have the coordinates of the 4 corners, and I have a point of access. So this is done. Woohoo! Now, the last thing we need is a house. And what I want to do with the house is a little bit different. So in the init method, yeah, like this exactly, I'm just gonna give it a set of rooms, which is going to be a list, of course. But these rooms are not going to be simple rooms, are going to be actually room objects, so that I have access to all the different attributes. And I could also give it an access point, like a door, you know? So this is going to be the main entrance of the house. Once I've done this, I just put like this. And this is pretty basic. Okay. Let's solve this. Now, I basically need the main logic of the game. And in this case, I'm gonna have the house object handle it, or the house class handle it. And I want to call it something like can move, because I want to return kind of a Boolean value so that I know that if I can move there, so there is no wall, or if I cannot move because there is a wall. And in here, I want to put an XY coordinate. So can I move to that position or not? Because if that position is occupied by a wall, of course I cannot be there. I cannot walk, through walls. And in this case, I'm gonna, since the rooms that I given is basically a list, I can loop over this list. So I can say for room in soft.rooms, and I need to specify a few things. So if my coordinates, the coordinates that I want to move is basically the door of the house, well, I need to say something. So I'll probably say like this. I'm gonna put it in the square brackets because I want it to be read as a list so that it's equal. Soft.door, like this. Well, maybe spelled a little bit better. If I'm on the door, I want to print something. And I think I'm just gonna print, this is the main door. And that's it. And since I can move through the door, I can return true in this case. Second case is actually if XY falls into the room's door, because I can pass through the room's door. So if the coordinates coincide, I have this as door. Basically, I am accessing this attribute, the door here, which is a set of coordinates, of course. If XY equals room.door, well, then I can pass through it. So I can say, there is a door. You may go in. Why not? And of course, after this one, I want to return true, because I can move. Another case is basically so how can I define when I am in the room? Well, I can define it as if my x and y coordinates are between the smallest x and smallest y of the room and the biggest x and biggest y of the room, well, that means that I'm inside of a room. And one way I can do that in Python is actually putting something like this. So the bottom left corner, which is always going to be the smallest one, and I'm going to take the x coordinate here. If that is smaller than x, and x is smaller than the top right corner, which is always going to be the biggest of them all, and I always want to look at the x in this case, and because I need to consider the y, but it's actually the same thing. I'm just going to consider the first value, the y, top right corner. So if x is inside these extremes and y is inside this extreme, it means that I'm inside the room. So I can just say print you are in, well, let's put it an F string. You are in, and I'm just gonna print the room name like this. And of course, I'm gonna return true because I can move there. Yes, I want to return true. One last case that I can consider is actually if I'm walking on a wall. And how can I know if I'm walking on a wall? Well, basically, if my x is equal to the smallest x or the biggest x, and the y is equal to the smallest x or the smallest y, well, I know that I'm basically walking on a wall, and I shouldn't be able to. So if x is equal to room dot bottom left, but I want to look at the x coordinate, or x is equal to the max x, which is the top right corner, and I think that this and is quite crucial here, because if you don't do it, it might not be a wall, it might just be the coordinate. So the two coordinates need to be there at the same time so that you can be sure that the thing is actually a wall. And this is the same thing. In this case, BL, but I'm gonna look at the first coordinate, and this case, I'm going to be looking at the top right corner. So if this is the case, well, I can print there is a wall in front of you. So basically you cannot move there. So I need to return false in this case. Alright? For all the other cases, if I don't find anything in any rooms, it means that I'm not in a room, I'm not on a door, and definitely I'm not on a wall. Well, then it means that I don't know, I can say that you are in a corridor. And you're actually free to move in a corridor. So I'm gonna return true. The end. Okay, now that we have everything set up, I'm just gonna start the game. And to start the game, I'm gonna just copy what I've done here with the rooms in here. And all this will be laid out in the graphics as you can see. And as you can see, I just given a name and a set of coordinates. This is gonna be the bottom left, the top right, and bottom right. And this is gonna be the door. After I have defined these rooms, I can create a house. And the house will be an house object. And I'm gonna give it a list with all the room object, the kitchen, the gaming room, because I want a gaming room, and the bathroom as well. Last, I need to give it a door, and I'm gonna give it 5-0. Now that I have the house, I have the rooms, I need a player. And the player is gonna be a player object, which is going to start from house dot door in the X and house dot door for the Y. It's not Y, it's 1. Now I just want to prompt the user, and as always I'm gonna use my while true loop. While true, I want to give an option of moving. The movement will just be an input, and an input can be like this, sending it to a new line. So basically W up, A left, S down, D right. After this move, I want to check what the input is. So if move.lower is equal to W, I want to move up. But first I want to check if I can move up. So I need to use the method in the house, which is can move. And if I want to move up, my X stays the same. So it's going to be my player X. But my Y is going to be actually +1. So I want to be player Y +1. If I can move, well then I want to move the player forward. So I want to kind of update the position of the player, basically. And I can do that with all the other movements. And one last thing, in the lower method you actually need to execute it, so it's gonna be with parentheses here. Okay, now that we got it, we can try it and run it and see if it works. So if I go here and run it, I can say if I go up, I'm in a corridor. If I go up again, I'm in a corridor still. What if I turn right? Oh, there's a door. Oh yeah. What if we go into the door? You're in the living room. Yeah. Well, let's go back then. What if we go up again, then to the left? There's a door. You're in the kitchen. Yoo-hoo! Alright, so it works. It works. Maybe not perfectly, but it works. Okay, so this one is done as well. And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing and hit the like button so that more people can see it. If you want to leave a comment down below and let me know something that you might actually find important to develop. And actually, I'd be interested in knowing if there was a possibility to do this project without actually using classes. I'm sure there is, but probably it's just too much code for one video. So after having said that, I'll see you to the next video. Thank you.